Daniel Clark looked out the viewport of the shuttle as it approached the massive structure floating in space. The Galactic Council station sparkled like a jewel against the backdrop of Proxima Centauri's reddish glow. His heart beat faster. He was the first human to travel this far from Earth, the first to represent humanity to the wider galactic community. "Ambassador, we're beginning docking procedures," said the pilot. "Council representatives will meet you in the arrival chamber." Daniel straightened his blue uniform, touching the small Earth emblem on his chest. 6 months of space travel had led to this moment. Earth had only discovered the existence of the Galactic Council 3 years ago when a damaged alien ship had crashed in the Pacific Ocean. The survivors revealed the truth. Humanity was not alone, and a vast community of species governed the stars. The shuttle shuddered as docking clamps engaged. Daniel took a deep breath and picked up his diplomatic case. Inside were gifts from Earth and data drives containing Earth's history, art, and scientific achievements. A peace offering from one world to many. The airlock door slid open with a soft hiss. Daniel stepped forward into a large, circular room with high ceilings and walls that seemed to shimmer with their own light. 3 figures waited for him. The tallest being resembled a walking crystal formation, light refracting through its body in rainbow patterns. Next to it floated what looked like a cloud of purple gas contained within a transparent force field. The third was insect-like, with compound eyes and 4 arms folded across its chest. "Ambassador Clark of Earth," the crystal being said, its voice creating strange echoes in the chamber. "I am Counselor Vex of the Axioni. These are Counselor Myth of the Miraith and Security Chief Zornax of the Vespula." Daniel bowed slightly. "On behalf of Earth and all humanity, I bring greetings and hopes for friendship." None of the aliens returned the gesture. Daniel felt the temperature of the room drop, not physically but in the cold stares of the council representatives. "You will be escorted to your quarters," Zornax said, mandibles clicking. "The full council will hear Earth's petition tomorrow." "Petition?" Daniel asked. "I was under the impression this was a welcoming ceremony." The purple gas cloud pulsed as Counselor Myth spoke, its voice somehow coming from everywhere at once. "Earth has not yet been granted membership status. The Council must evaluate your species' worthiness." Daniel frowned but kept his diplomatic smile in place. "Of course, I look forward to presenting our case." As Daniel followed a small robotic guide to his quarters, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The aliens had seemed almost hostile, not at all like the welcoming committee he had expected. His room was comfortable but sterile, clearly designed to accommodate many different life forms. Daniel unpacked his few personal items, including a small hologram of his wife Allison and daughter Chloe back in Colorado. He touched the image, making their smiling faces light up. "I wish you could see this place," he whispered to their images. A soft chime at the door interrupted his thoughts. When he opened it, he found a smaller alien waiting. This one had blue-tinted skin that seemed to ripple like water and large, expressive eyes. "Ambassador Clark? I am Elizabeth Morgan, junior diplomat of the Nyadine." Her voice had a musical quality like water flowing over stones. Daniel smiled, relieved to meet someone who actually used a greeting. "Please come in." Once inside, Elizabeth glanced around nervously. "I shouldn't be here, but I felt you deserved a warning. The council session tomorrow is not what you think." "What do you mean?" "The dominant species, the Axioni, Miraith, and Vespula, they've already classified humanity as a feral species. They voted last cycle to quarantine your entire solar system." Daniel felt his blood run cold. "Quarantine? But we've barely begun to explore beyond our system." "On what grounds?" Elizabeth's skin rippled with what seemed like sadness. "Your history. The council reviewed the data from the ship that crashed on your planet. They accessed your global information network and found your wars, your weapons, your conflicts. Every species has a violent past," Daniel argued. "We've grown beyond much of that. The council doesn't see it that way. The quarantine vote has already passed. Tomorrow is merely a formality to inform you of their decision." Daniel sat heavily in a chair. "So I came all this way for nothing?" Earth sent me to establish diplomatic relations, not to be told we're prisoners in our own solar system." Elizabeth moved closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "There's more. Some on the Council fear humanity's potential. Your species adapts quickly, innovates rapidly. Several elder species see you as a future threat." "A threat? We're centuries behind your technology." "But for how long? The Axioni took 50,000 years to develop faster-than-light travel after achieving spaceflight. Humans did it in less than 300 years after your first primitive rockets. They fear what you might become." Daniel's diplomatic training kicked in. "Thank you for the warning. I'll adjust my presentation accordingly." After Elizabeth left, Daniel worked through the night, rewriting his speech. If the Council had already decided against Earth, he needed to change their minds. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Olivia Price sat at her monitoring station in NASA's Deep Space Communications Center. The screens before her showed unusual energy readings, coming from the edge of the solar system. "Dr. Franklin, you need to see this," she called to her supervisor. Dr. Lydia Franklin leaned over her shoulder, frowning at the data. "Those patterns aren't natural. Run it through the pattern recognition software." Moments later, the computer beeped. "Match found. Similar energy signatures were detected from the alien crash site 3 years ago, but much stronger." "How many sources?" Dr. Franklin asked quietly. Olivia's fingers flew over the keyboard. "At least 50 distinct signatures, all massive." Dr. Franklin reached for the secure phone. "Get me Major Jones at Earth Defense Command now." Across the world at the EDC headquarters, Major Gregory Jones was awakened by the urgent call. Within minutes, he stood in the command center as satellite images confirmed NASA's readings. "It looks like a fleet," he told the gathered officers. "Position suggests they're establishing a blockade formation." "What about Ambassador Clark?" asked his second-in-command. "Any communication?" "Nothing since the scheduled check-in 12 hours ago," an officer replied. "All attempts to establish contact with the Council station have failed." Major Jones looked at the growing cluster of dots on the screen. "Alert the President. Tell her we may have a first contact situation going very wrong, very fast." Back on the Council station, Daniel Clark prepared to address the assembled Council, unaware that his words might be the last hope for peaceful relations between Earth and the galaxy beyond. The Council chamber was enormous. Daniel Clark stood on a small platform in the center of a vast circular room. Above and around him, hundreds of alien representatives sat in rising tiers. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange that Daniel's mind struggled to make sense of their forms. At the highest tier sat the 7 high counselors, including the 3 he had met yesterday. The crystal-like Axioni, Counselor Vex, seemed to preside over the gathering. "Ambassador Clark of Earth," Vex's voice boomed through the chamber. "You stand before the Galactic Council, representing a species that has been classified as feral and dangerous. This hearing will determine the extent of quarantine measures to be implemented in your solar system." Daniel gripped the edges of his podium. "With respect, Counselor, my people were not aware of this classification. We came in peace, seeking friendship and knowledge exchange." A new figure stepped forward on the Council platform. Tall and gray-skinned with 4 eyes arranged vertically, it wore elaborate robes covered in strange symbols. "I am Adjudicator Theresian," it said. "I will present the evidence against your species." Large screens appeared around the chamber. They showed images from Earth's history: wars, weapons testing, environmental damage. Scenes of violence played one after another. "In just the last century of your brief existence," Theresian continued, "humans have engaged in 2 global conflicts, developed atomic weapons, and nearly destroyed your own biosphere. Your entertainment glorifies violence. Your children train. In combat simulations you call games." Daniel felt sweat form on his forehead. "Every species has a violent past. We learn from our mistakes. Humanity has made great progress toward peace and cooperation." Theresian's upper eyes narrowed. "Our genetic analysis tells a different story. Humans are hardwired for aggression. Your stress responses trigger violence more readily than any Council species. You are by nature dangerous, For 2 hours, Daniel defended humanity against a seemingly endless stream of accusations. Each time he made a point, Thrazian twisted his words or presented new evidence against Earth. It slowly dawned on Daniel that this wasn't a fair hearing. It was a show trial. During a brief recess, Elizabeth Morgan found him in a small waiting area. "They're not listening to anything I say," Daniel told her, his voice tight with frustration. "They never intended to," Elizabeth replied. "I've accessed some restricted files. The Council fears humanity's potential, your adaptability, your creativity. These qualities make you unpredictable." "But why go through this charade?" Elizabeth's skin rippled with emotion. "They need to establish a legal basis for their actions. Whatever they plan for Earth, they want the approval of the full Council." Daniel ran a hand through his hair. "What actions? What are they planning?" Before Elizabeth could answer, Security Chief Zornax appeared at the door. "The Council reconvenes. Return to your position, Ambassador." Back in the chamber, Counselor Vex addressed Daniel directly. "You have heard the evidence against your species. Do you have final words before the Council votes?" Daniel looked around, at the hundreds of alien faces. Some seemed curious, others fearful or disgusted. A few, like Elizabeth, showed what might be sympathy. "Members of the Council," Daniel began, "I came here believing in the possibility of friendship between worlds. I still believe in that possibility. Yes, humans have fought wars. We have hurt each other and our planet. But we have also created art, music, and literature. We have healed the sick, explored our world, and reached for the stars not to conquer, but to understand." As he spoke, Daniel noticed some of the representatives leaning forward, listening intently. "We are young compared to your civilizations. We make mistakes, but we learn quickly and we want to learn from you. Don't judge us only by our worst moments, but by our potential. Humanity extends a hand in friendship. Will you take it?" For a moment, there was silence. Then Zornak stepped forward. "The human speaks of friendship while his planet prepares for war." New images appeared on the screens. They showed Earth's military satellites, defense systems, and ships. Even as their ambassador speaks of peace, the humans activate weapons and prepare their fleets, Zornak said. "This proves our concerns." Daniel shook his head. "No, you're misunderstanding. If Earth's defenses are on alert, it's because they detected your fleet approaching our system. They're responding to a perceived threat. A threat that exists only in your violent imaginations," Thrazian replied. "The Council merely sent observation vessels to monitor the quarantine." "Then why cut off my communications with Earth?" Daniel demanded. "Let me speak to my government, explain the situation." Counselor Vex's crystalline body glowed brighter. "The Council will vote now on the question of Earth's classification as a feral species and the implementation of system-wide quarantine." One by one, representatives cast their votes. Daniel watched in growing despair as the numbers grew. While some voted against the measure, the outcome was clear. "The vote is concluded," Vex announced. "Earth is officially classified as a Class 5 feral world. All contact is forbidden. The Sol system will remain under quarantine until humans evolve beyond their violent nature." Daniel stepped forward. "This is wrong. You can't isolate an entire species based on prejudice and fear." "Ambassador Clark," Zornak said, mandibles clicking, "your continued aggressive behavior only confirms our decision." "This isn't aggression," Daniel shouted. "This is the righteous anger of someone watching an injustice unfold." Zornax turned to the Council. "The human representative threatens the peace of this gathering. I recommend immediate containment." Armed guards surrounded Daniel's platform. "You're making a terrible mistake," Daniel warned. "Earth won't accept this quarantine. They'll see it as an act of aggression." "Your opinion no longer matters," Thrazian said. "Take him away." As the guards led Daniel from the chamber, he caught a glimpse of Elizabeth's horrified face. On Earth, President Samantha Wright sat in the Situation Room beneath the White House. Screens showed the alien fleet now fully visible just beyond Mars. "Still no response to our hails?" she asked. Nothing, Madam President, Communications Director Alan Foster replied. And still no word from Ambassador Clark. Major Jones stepped forward. The fleet has deployed smaller vessels. They're establishing positions around Earth and our colonies on the Moon and Mars. A blockade, General Linda Harris said. Classic first move in a siege operation. President Wright studied the tactical display. What are our options? Limited, ma'am, General Harris admitted. Their technology is far beyond ours. A direct confrontation would be brief. The President closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, her face showed grim determination. Contact the Security Council members. Tell them it's time to discuss Protocol Omega. Major Jones looked startled. Madam President, that protocol was developed as a theoretical exercise for extinction-level threats. And what would you call this, Major? She asked, gesturing at the screen showing the alien fleet. Our ambassador is missing. An alien armada surrounds our planet, and they refuse communication. If this isn't what Protocol Omega was designed for, I don't know what is. Daniel Clark sat in his cell aboard the council station. The room was small and bare, with only a simple bed and a force field door that shimmered with blue energy. 3 days had passed since the council vote. 3 days without communication with Earth. 3 days of wondering what would happen next. The force field flickered and disappeared. Security Chief Zornax entered, flanked by 2 guards. Ambassador Clark, Zornax said, the High Council has reached a final decision regarding your case. Daniel stood up. And what case is that? I came here as a diplomatic representative. Being imprisoned for speaking the truth hardly seems like proper diplomatic protocol. Zornax's compound eyes reflected no emotion. You have been charged with inciting rebellion against the Council. Several lesser species have begun questioning the quarantine decision after your outburst. Good, Daniel said. Maybe they'll realize what's happening here isn't justice. Justice is not the concern, Zornax replied. Order is. Your species represents chaos and unpredictability. The Council has decided more severe measures are necessary. Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. What measures? Your execution will be broadcast to Earth as a warning. The humans must understand their place in the galactic order. Daniel lunged forward, but the guards caught him before he could reach. Zornax, you can't do this. Earth will never stand for it. Earth has no choice, Zornax said. Your planet is surrounded. Your technology is primitive compared to ours. This display will ensure compliance. As the guards dragged Daniel away, he caught sight of Elizabeth Morgan watching from the shadows of a nearby corridor. The look of horror on her face told him everything he needed to know. This wasn't normal council procedure. Something larger was happening. On Earth, the United Nations Security Council had been in continuous session for 2 days. Representatives from every nation sat around the massive table, their faces grim. President Wright stood at the head of the table. The alien fleet has completed its blockade. All attempts at communication have failed. Our lunar colony reports being scanned by alien vessels, but no hostile action yet. The Chinese President Wei Feng leaned forward. And still no word from Ambassador Clark? Nothing, President Wright confirmed. We must assume the worst. The Russian President, Igor Petrov, tapped his fingers on the table. Then we must discuss the Doomsday Protocol. Murmurs filled the room. Protocol Omega had been developed in secret by the world's top military and scientific minds after the alien crash 3 years ago. It was the ultimate contingency plan if first contact went catastrophically wrong. I've authorized Phase 1, President Wright said. Admiral William Scott stepped forward. A tall man with gray hair and deep lines etched into his face. He activated a holographic display in the center of the table. The deep black fleet is moving into position, he said. 12 vessels built using reverse-engineered technology from the crashed alien ship. They've been hiding in the asteroid belt and the moons of Jupiter, out of detection range. The display showed small blue dots moving through the solar system. Each ship is equipped with experimental drives and weapon systems, Admiral Scott continued. They won't match the alien fleet in direct combat, but they can strike fast and retreat faster. And Phase 2? Asked the British Prime Minister. President Wright nodded to a woman sitting quietly at the end of the table. Dr. Franklin? Doctor, Lydia Franklin stood. Her face showed the strain of days without sleep. Project Prometheus is ready. We've developed self-replicating AI systems designed to infiltrate and disrupt alien technology. Based on what we learned from the crashed ship, we believe their networks are vulnerable to certain forms of attack. And how will these AIs reach the alien vessels? Asked the French president. Microsatellites, Dr. Franklin explained. Thousands of them no larger than a coin. They've been deployed throughout Earth orbit. Once activated, they'll attach to alien ships and inject the AI. And Phase 3? President Petrov asked grimly. A solemn-looking man in a lab coat stood. Dr. Henry Grayson, CDC. The biological response is prepared but should be considered our last resort. We've engineered viruses designed to target non-human physiologies based on samples from the crash survivors. These pathogens would be devastating to the alien species we've identified but harmless to Earth life. President Wright surveyed the room. I want to be clear. We activate these measures only if diplomacy fails completely. We still hope. Anne, aide rushed into the room and whispered urgently in President Wright's ear. Her face paled. Turn on the main screen, she ordered. The large screen at the end of the room flickered to life. It showed the interior of what appeared to be a massive chamber filled with alien beings. In the center, Daniel Clark knelt on a platform, his hands bound behind him. A voice spoke in strangely accented English. People of Earth, your representative has been found guilty of crimes against galactic order. By authority of the High Council, the sentence is death. Let this serve as a warning to all humans. Accept your quarantine or face worse consequences. The crystal being that Daniel had identified as Counselor Vex stepped forward. Ambassador Daniel Clark, do you have final words before sentence is carried out? The camera zoomed in on Daniel's face. Despite his situation, his eyes were clear and defiant. People of Earth, he said, his voice steady. Don't believe what they tell you. The Council fears us because they know what we can become. They call us violent, but they're the ones threatening our world. Don't surrender. Don't. Security Chief Zornak stepped forward with a rod-like device. A pulse of energy shot from it, striking Daniel in the chest. His body jerked once and then went still. The broadcast cut off. In the Security Council chamber, silence fell. President Wright's hands gripped the edge of the table so hard her knuckles turned white. They just executed our ambassador, she said, her voice shaking with rage. On a global broadcast. This was not the action of a peaceful organization, President Fung said quietly. No more waiting, President Petrov growled. They've shown their true intentions. President Wright straightened her shoulders and looked around the room. As agreed in our emergency protocols, this act constitutes a clear hostile action against Earth. I am authorizing full implementation of Protocol Omega, all phases, effective immediately. She turned to Admiral Scott. Deploy the Deep Black Fleet. 2. Dr. Franklin. Activate Project Prometheus. And finally, to Dr. Grayson. Begin production of the biological agents, but hold on deployment pending my direct order. As the leaders of Earth mobilized their secret defenses, billions of people watched replays of Daniel Clark's execution. In homes across the planet, shock turned to anger, and anger to resolve. In Colorado, Allison Clark held her daughter Chloe as they watched the broadcast together. Tears streamed down their faces. What happens now, Mom? Chloe asked, her voice small. Allison wiped her eyes and looked toward the sky visible through their window. Now, honey. Earth fights back. On the council station, Elizabeth Morgan moved silently through the service corridors. After witnessing Daniel Clark's execution, she had made her decision. The council had gone too far. As a junior diplomat from a lesser species, she had suffered the council's prejudice for years. Now she saw a chance to change things. She reached a small communications room used by maintenance workers. Using her access codes, she connected to a secure channel. "This is Elizabeth Morgan calling all representatives of non-dominant species," she whispered. "What happened today was murder, not justice. If the Council can do this to humans, they can do it to any of us. Meet me in Service Sector 12 if you want to fight back." Throughout the station, dozens of aliens who had watched Daniel's execution with horror received her message. Many had already been questioning the Council's actions. Meanwhile, in Earth orbit, the alien fleet detected unusual activity. Small objects barely visible to their sensors began attaching to their hulls. Inside the lead ship, a display flashed warnings. "Commander," reported a Vespula officer to Zornax, who had returned from the execution. "Our systems are detecting intrusion attempts." Zornax clicked his mandibles in annoyance. "The humans have some primitive cyber capability? Block it." "We're trying, but—" The officer paused as his console sparked. "It's adapting to our countermeasures. Across the alien fleet, Dr. Franklin's Project Prometheus came to life. The self-replicating AI infiltrated ship after ship, causing systems to malfunction and communications to fail. Deep in the outer solar system, Admiral Scott's voice echoed through the command deck of the lead vessel of the Deep Black Fleet. "All ships, this is Admiral Scott. Commence Operation First Strike. Target priority is their command and communication vessels." The 12 Earth ships, sleek and black, powered up their experimental drives. Built with technology reverse-engineered, from the crashed alien vessel they moved with incredible speed. Before the alien fleet could react to the cyber attack, the Deep Black Fleet appeared from hiding places throughout the solar system. "Fire all experimental weapons," Admiral Scott ordered. Beams of concentrated energy struck the alien vessels, cutting through shields weakened by the AI attack. 3 of the largest Council ships exploded in silent bursts of light. In the United Nations Command Center, President Wright watched the battle unfold on the tactical display. "It's working," Admiral Scott reported via video link from his ship. "The alien fleet is in disarray. They didn't expect us to have this level of technology." "Keep pressing the advantage," President Wright ordered. "But be prepared to retreat if necessary. We can't lose those ships." On the Council station, Elizabeth Morgan had gathered 30 representatives from various lesser species. They met in a large maintenance bay, speaking in hushed voices. "The Council has lied to us for generations," said Krell, a reptilian being, from a world long under Council control. "They keep our worlds dependent while harvesting our resources. They classify any species that might challenge them as feral," added Nima, a small furry creature whose people were renowned scholars before Council restrictions limited their research. The human ambassador saw through their deception. "Elizabeth said, that's why they killed him. But his death can be the catalyst for change." "What can we do against the Council's security forces?" asked another representative. Elizabeth smiled. "The station's systems are in chaos. The humans have launched some kind of cyber attack. Most of the security forces have been sent to deal with it. This is our chance." She held up a small device. "I've accessed the station's communications system. We can broadcast the truth to all worlds, expose the Council's corruption." Back in the solar system, Major Gregory Jones led a daring raid on one of the alien command ships. As the Deep Black Fleet engaged the main Council forces, 3 smaller, faster craft approached a damaged alien vessel. "Prepare for boarding," Major Jones told his team of 20 Special Forces soldiers equipped with experimental-powered armor. "Remember, we need to capture their command center intact. We need their navigation data and communications logs." The boarding craft attached to the alien ship's hull. Cutting lasers made short work of the outer plating. The Earth troops entered the vessel, moving swiftly through its corridors. They met resistance from the ship's crew, mostly Vespula warriors with energy weapons. But the powered armor gave the human soldiers an edge, and the aliens were disorganized by the AI attack disrupting their communications. Major Jones led the way to the command center. "Breach in 3, 2, 1. The door blew inward. Earth soldiers poured into the room, quickly subduing the alien officers. A tall, gray-skinned alien with 4 vertical eyes seemed to be in command. "Secure all consoles," Major Jones ordered. "Download everything." As his team worked, Jones approached the alien commander. "Who are you?" I am Sub-Commander Raxus of the Galactic Council Enforcement Division, the alien replied. You humans have signed your death warrant with this attack. We're not the ones who started this, Jones replied coldly. You executed our ambassador and threatened our world. You know nothing, Raxus spat. The Council has ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years. We decide which species rise and which remain primitive. Humans were never meant to join the galactic community. Why? What makes us so different? Raxus's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. You changed too quickly, evolved too rapidly. The preservers predicted you would overtake most Council species within a century if allowed to develop freely. The preservers? Jones asked. The inner circle, the oldest species who truly rule the Council. They have guided galactic development for millennia, ensuring stability. Sir, called one of Jones's team, we've got something. It looks like communications. Between this ship and others, they mentioned something called the final solution for Earth. Jones grabbed Raxus by his uniform. What's the final solution? Raxus's upper eyes narrowed. If the quarantine fails, the Council has authorized sterilization of your system. The preservers have dispatched their personal fleet. When it arrives, your world will be cleansed of all intelligent life. On the Council station, Elizabeth and her growing group of rebels had taken control of the main communications center. The few guards had been overwhelmed by their numbers and determination. We're ready to broadcast, Nema said, working the complex equipment. Elizabeth nodded. Send it to every world, every colony, every ship in Council space. Her face appeared on screens across thousands of worlds. Citizens of the galaxy, I am Elizabeth Morgan of the Naiadan. What I am about to show you has been hidden by the Council for generations. The broadcast showed evidence of the Council's corruption, records of resource theft from developing worlds, genetic manipulation to keep certain species subservient, and plans for containment of any species showing too much potential. The execution of Earth's ambassador was not an isolated incident, Elizabeth continued. It was part of a pattern of control and suppression that has lasted for millennia. But together, we can create a new galactic order based on equality and cooperation. As billions watched her broadcast, the galactic political landscape began to shift. On dozens of worlds, populations rose up against Council representatives. Ships from non-dominant species began breaking away from the Council fleet. Back on Earth, President Wright received the news of Major Jones's discovery with grim determination. So they were planning to destroy us all along, she said to her advisors. The quarantine was just the first step. What are your orders, Madam President? General Harris asked. President Wright looked at the tactical display showing the battle in space. Prepare the quantum disruption array. If this preserver fleet arrives, we'll need to be ready. A week after Daniel Clark's execution, the solar system had become a battlefield. The Deep Black Fleet continued hit-and-run attacks against the Council forces. Project Prometheus had spread throughout the alien network, crippling their coordination. But Earth's defenses were not without losses. 3 of the 12 Deep Black ships had been destroyed, and parts of the lunar colony had suffered damage from alien weapons. In her command center beneath the White House, President Wright received an urgent message from Admiral Scott. Madam President, our long-range sensors have detected a new fleet entering the solar system. Based on their energy signatures, these ships are far more powerful than anything we've faced so far. The Preserver Fleet, President Wright said grimly. How long until they reach Earth? Less than 12 hours. President Wright turned to Dr. Franklin. Is the quantum disruption array ready? Dr. Franklin nodded. Yes, but I must emphasize its experimental nature. The array can tear apart the fabric of spacetime in a localized area, but the effects are not fully predictable. We might destroy the preserver fleet, or we might cause catastrophic damage to our own system. It's our last option, President Wright said. Begin preparations. On the Council station, Elizabeth Morgan's resistance had grown. Hundreds of representatives from dozens of species now controlled large portions of the station. The Council's security forces were divided, with many choosing to join the rebellion. Elizabeth stood in the main control room, surrounded by her allies. The preservers are sending their fleet to Earth. We need to stop them. How? Asked Krell. Even with control of the station, we can't match their firepower. Elizabeth smiled. We don't need to fight them. We need to expose them. For too long, the preservers have ruled from the shadows, manipulating the Council. It's time for a full assembly, one where all species have a voice. Using the station's emergency protocols, Elizabeth sent out a call for a special session of the Galactic Council. Her message reached every world and ship in Council space. The future of the galaxy hangs in the balance. All representatives must attend. The preservers must answer for their actions. In Earth orbit, Major Jones interrogated more captured alien officers. With each new piece of information, a disturbing picture emerged. The preservers engineered the entire conflict, he reported to President Wright. They wanted Earth isolated and then destroyed before we could develop further. But why? President Wright asked. What makes humans such a threat? According to their own records, we're not the first, Jones explained. Throughout galactic history, any species showing rapid adaptation and innovation has been classified as feral and eliminated. The preservers maintain their power by keeping technological progress slow and controlled. As the preserver fleet approached Earth, something unexpected happened. Ships from dozens of non-Council worlds began arriving in the solar system. They positioned themselves between Earth and the oncoming preserver fleet. A transmission reached Earth's command center. On the screen appeared a small, furry alien that President Wright recognized from Elizabeth Morgan's broadcasts. I am Nima of the Lorani, the alien said. We and others have come to stand with Earth against preserver tyranny. For too long we have watched as promising species were destroyed. No more. Back on the Council station, Elizabeth and her allies prepared for the special session. The Great Council chamber filled with representatives from hundreds of worlds. At the highest tier sat the 7 High Counselors, including Counselor Vex of the Axioni, looking considerably less confident than during Daniel Clark's trial. Where are the preservers? Elizabeth demanded. They must answer for their crimes. Counselor Vex's crystalline body dimmed slightly. The preservers do not appear before the General Council. They guide from afar. Not anymore, Elizabeth declared. We have accessed the sealed records. We know the truth. On the massive screens around the chamber, evidence of the preservers' manipulations played for all to see. Genetic tampering to limit development of certain species, manufactured conflicts to keep potential rivals weak, the systematic elimination of innovative civilizations under the guise of feral containment. This is the true face of the Council, Elizabeth said. Not unity but control, not peace but suppression. Murmurs of shock and anger spread through the chamber. Even many of the dominant species representatives seemed disturbed by the revelations. What would you have us do? Asked Counselor Myth of the Maraith. The preserver fleet is already on its way to Earth. They answer to no one, not even the High Council. Then we must stop them, Elizabeth replied. All ships loyal to a true galactic community must stand with Earth. In the solar system, President Wright received word of the Council session. It seems we have allies, she told her advisors, but the preserver fleet is still coming. Dr. Franklin approached with a tablet in her hand. Madam President, I've been analyzing the data from the captured alien ships. There might be another way besides the quantum disruption array. I'm listening. The preservers use an advanced form of faster-than-light communication to control their fleet. If we can disrupt that signal, their ships will be isolated and vulnerable. President Wright looked at the tactical display. Can Project Prometheus accomplish this? With some modifications? Yes. As the preserver fleet entered the inner solar system, they found themselves facing not just Earth's defenses but a growing coalition of ships from worlds throughout the galaxy. The battle that followed was unlike anything seen in the history of the Council. Earth's deep black fleet led daring attacks, supported by vessels of a dozen different species. Project Prometheus, now enhanced to target preserver communications, spread throughout their network. Without their coordinated advantage, the preservers found themselves outmaneuvered by the more diverse tactics of the coalition. On the Council station, Elizabeth received the news of the battle's progress. The coalition is holding, But the preservers are still pushing through. They're determined to reach Earth. Suddenly, an idea struck her. She turned to her allies. The preservers rely on their image of invincibility. What if we show the galaxy that they can be defeated? Using the station's powerful communications array, Elizabeth broadcast the battle to every world in Council space. Billions watched as the supposedly invincible preservers struggled against the combined forces led by Earth. In the command ship of the preserver fleet, the ancient aliens who had manipulated galactic civilization for millennia watched in growing alarm as their carefully maintained image of power crumbled. This cannot be allowed, their leader, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline shell, declared. Prepare the final weapon. Earth must be destroyed, regardless of cost. But before they could act, a transmission cut through their communications. On screens throughout their fleet appeared the faces of the High Council. By emergency vote of the full Galactic Council, Councillor Vex announced, "The preservers are hereby stripped of all authority. Your fleet is ordered to stand down immediately." The preserver leader's energy form flared with rage. "The Council does not command us. We created the Council. Then you will face the consequences of your actions," Vex replied. Throughout the preserver fleet, ships began powering down as captains and crews, seeing the broadcasts from the Council station, chose to stand down rather than continue a fight, based on lies. 3 months later, Daniel Clark's widow Allison stood on a platform in the newly reconstituted Council chamber. Before her were representatives from hundreds of worlds, including many who had never before been allowed a voice in galactic affairs. "On behalf of Earth," she said, her voice steady, "I accept the position of ambassador to the Galactic Council. My husband believed in the possibility of friendship between worlds. Today we begin to make that belief a reality." The chamber erupted in approval. Elizabeth Morgan, now serving as the Council's chief diplomat, stepped forward to present Allison with a ceremonial medallion. "The Daniel Clark Accords will ensure that no species faces discrimination or suppression again," Elizabeth said. "A new age of cooperation has begun." Later, as Allison prepared to return to Earth for a visit, she found her daughter Chloe looking out a viewport at the stars. "Dad would be proud, wouldn't he?" Chloe asked. Allison put her arm around her daughter's shoulders. "Yes, he would. He always said humanity's future was among the stars. He just didn't know how right he was." Together they watched as ships from dozens of worlds moved peacefully around the station, a testament to a new galactic order born from humanity's refusal to accept extinction, and one man's courage to speak truth in the face of power.